Actually, Dave Zirin was just summing up this how ESPN being caught flat-footed with this story of Jason Collins coming out kind of resorted to unleashing one of their team homophobic reporters to kind of get some traction on this story. And that, with all the positive news in sports over the last 24 hours, was obviously extremely negative manifestation of modern sports culture. And now we're going to go to a much, much darker place in terms of modern sports, which is another thing you've been covering. And Matt wanted to ask you about, which is some of the latest news from the Steubenville football program. Go ahead, Matt.
So, Dave, you have this. You have an article on your website, edgeofsports.com, where it looks like that the Steubenville School Board has extended the Steubenville High School football coach, Reno Secochia, I believe is his name. They extended.
Yeah, that's right, Coach Sack, as he's known.
Coach Sack.
Jesus.
That's man. So
aptly named.
They've extended his contract for 2 years. I mean, there's currently a grand jury. I believe the grand jury will convene to decide whether or not he knew what was going on. I mean, by all accounts, he knew what was going on, and he not only didn't report it, but he continued to let this rape crew, as they called themselves, play sports on the football team. What does that say about sports? I mean, culture. I mean, where this sort of where this rape was just swept under the rug, and I mean, I would say, for most part, the public, really rallied behind this girl, and I mean, that's why these pictures came out, and that's why it was begged for something to happen. But I mean,
let me do a mild pushback on what you just said, because you're right that there was an outpouring of support for Jane Doe as she was known nationally. But when it came to locally in that town, I mean, it was about death threats. It was about harassment. It was about needing armed guards at her house. Mm-hmm. I mean, far from support. I mean, there were efforts to destroy her life. And when we say destroy her life, I mean, we should remember the young woman in Canada who was raped and had pictures posted, and she took her own life. That just happened recently. Her name was Satara. And so these things are happening in far too many communities, and frankly, they're happening in connection with far too many sports programs. And, I mean, what it says to us more than anything is that when sports culture goes off the rails, and it's off the rails in too many communities, we see how jock culture can very easily become rape culture. When the ideas that are promoted by a team are actually the ideas about entitlement and seeing women as entitlements of being a star athlete, effectively seeing women as currency for being a star athlete, you get these horrible, horrible results. Now, it doesn't have to be this way, but you need to have a coach and you need to have grown-ups who are conscious that sports culture and rape culture can exist comfortably side by side and fight against it. The problem with Coach Sack is that far from even being benignly neglecting the reality of rape culture in his locker room, there seems to be a lot of malignant intent. If you go by some of the text messages the young men sent to each other about how Coach Sack is laughing, he said he's going to take care of it, and that's really toxic. And the idea, even if he's found innocent by the grand jury, first of all, the idea that they would extend him before even hearing from the grand jury is such a slap in the face.
Yes.
And even if the grand jury says he's fine, I mean, I don't see how you keep this guy. And yet they do. And it's because he wins football games. And that in and of itself sends a message not only to the women of the community, but to the young men as well, as far as what's acceptable.
I mean, you have over 134, like you say in your article, over 134,000 people all over the country asking for this guy to be fired, and for them just to not even realize on that front. I mean, even if they can't open up their eyes to what's going on with like you said, the combination, the side-by-side jock culture and rape culture. But I mean, just they don't even care enough to see that people want this guy gone because of what he's done. And I mean, just to be blind to that alone is amazing.
You're right. And I think even worse is that they have contempt for the fact that so-called outsiders, and believe me, I got a lot of hate mail from people in that community who are like, you're an outsider, therefore you have no right to say anything about this. I think that they have a contempt, though, for this idea that, no, wait a minute, Steubenville's a national story. There are young people watching this case, following this case. There are adults watching this case, following this case. We all have a responsibility to see that this thing goes and progresses in the right kind of way, because the cultural ricochet effect extends far beyond Steubenville, Ohio.
There's plenty of Steubenvilles out there, yeah.
Well, it almost seems like I could just imagine, it seems like if Penn State, which I'm sure some people did, but came out and said, and in fact, many people did do this, kind of just blindly defending Joe Paterno, even as he turned a blind eye to systemic child rape and molestation. So obviously we have these cultures in sports, unfortunately, that you've been working to expose for a while. But it really is just unbelievable that they would renew that guy's contract. Do you think
in our era of mass culture and social media, the idea that this is a Steubenville story and a Steubenville story alone feels about as quaint as a horse and buggy.
Right. Absolutely. Do you think that there is a potential of this being reversed because of the kind of national outrage that you're highlighting?
I think that they will, unless the grand jury steps forward with something. I think this is going to go forward as planned. I think they've dug in their heels. I think now too many people have thrown in their lot with this guy, where it would be a ricochet effect that would affect too many people in power. So, no, they have made their statement in Steubenville.
That's unbelievable. Well, Dave, we highlighted some great things with Jason Collins. We just ended on a kind of sour and depressing note, but that is the full picture of what's going on. And sorry about the technical difficulties, man, but it was excellent having you on.
Oh, my privilege, guys. Anytime. Love the Majority Report.